Chapter 15. The evening is clouding herself together. The second Urtu lies in view up the hill. The bungee rope lets out a forlorn moan from inside my backpack. Tomorrow night, I say, your turn will come. We have until 8:30 to make it to the Urtu, after which we'll be penalized for a 2-minute wait for every minute over. We come to a stream around 8 p.m. But the majestic river floated on, out of the mist and hum of that low land. These lines from Matthew Arnold's Sohrab and Rustam doze in my Winnie the Pooh notebook, mirroring the Mongolscape. Wide-eyed Iona, friend of my brother Arthur, sent me a list of poems the night before I left Ulaanbaatar. This one from Macaulay. To every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. And how can men die better than facing fearful odds? She hoped the poems would be my solace, but they left me with a grand sense that I was embarking on a mission for a higher cause. What you are so ploddingly not, utters the pony beneath me. When we reach the Urtu at 8:15 p.m., Helen, the vet, a jovial South African, greets us in an oversized raincoat. Her nimble blue-eyed face and wispy blonde hair remind me of my mother. She bends to the pony, listens to his heart, and announces that its rate is well below 64. I ask the interpreter to thank the herder for allowing me to ride this creature. I want to speak Mongolian directly to him, and it feels shameful that I can't. It is a crime. Is it a crime to grin at him instead? We humans speak 10,000 languages. A little eye contact must ripple through them all. Devon Horn was well into the lead. At least 4 hours ahead of you guys, said Gloria, the ABC reporter from Real Life Airbrushed Cheeks. Apparently, Richard was with Devon at Urtu 3, snapping photos of her lying imperially upon a bed. I bent through a door frame of a gur and fumbled over some sleeping bodies. The more awake riders were discussing the news. Devon had managed 3 stations when the rest of us had barely done 2. Matthias was down and out, and that was a shock. But the Texans' race was going according to her plan, with the bonus of a bed. That night, the Mongol Derby website published an interview with the race's founder. Who, he was asked, will win? Who, he was asked, will win? I haven't a clue, he said, pausing. Time and 1,000 kilometers of time and 1,000 kilometers of ass-pounding step will tell. In horse riding sports, competitors often don't invest in winning. You go out in the simple hope that you and the horse will get on well enough together over the obstacles at hand. Maybe Devon's attitude added an Olympic tinge to the Derby that year, one from which her fellow competitors, including me, were failing to find immunity. Few riders had taken the race so seriously in the past. When pairs shared the first place, men crossed the finish line holding hands and riders drank spirits while racing. I slide about camp, skirting clusters of people and their conversations. I have an appointment with the evening and don't want to be noticed. When I see someone turn, I dart into the crowded gur, where a broad-cheeked lady from the Erdenbleg family sets hot noodle and mutton soup on my lap. 5 gulps. Finished. Dotingly, she passes me a second helping. I thank her endlessly, meaninglessly, and withdraw to a corner to strip off my soaking joggers. Next to me, a rider is pinning herself into yogic positions. Easing the tension, she says. Twisting her head away from me, I sit, scratching my legs. Half an hour past the 8:30 deadline, businesswoman Lynn rides in with a sad story on her lips. After she fell behind Adam, a drunken man chased her on his motorcycle, groped her, and tried to lasso her pony. Once everyone is tented, I twirl and sprint and go, horseless down the wet, grassy hill and up again. Noodle energy. My feet flap along under the mass of me, yelping. The bunions are crossed after their full day in boots. I return panting to a girl who shows me the toilet, which is simply earth, all earth. You can go anywhere. I crouch to the earwigs, who graze the evening in search of the lost centuries. Fading rain and final sunlight dab the hills around this, the coziest of valleys. Lying between here and the finish is 12 times today's distance. My, how many days will that take? Deep in our sleeping bags, Natasha and I marvel at how strange it is not to have seen each other since the start line. Already time is passing strangely, and the morning feels a billion years behind us. When I mention I might ride with her tomorrow, Natasha replies, "No bloody way I'm riding with you. I don't trust you 1 inch." She lands on the inch and splutters onwards, as though coughing the idea of me out of her system. Can you imagine how wrong things would go? You'd get me so lost we might even disappear from this earth. I cackle, mildly offended, wondering whom I will ride with instead, since there's no chance I'll find my way alone. I didn't think about rain, so I don't have a change of clothes. No pajamas, no second pair of jodhpurs, just a spare pair of socks and a pair of knickers. Oh dear, I'm going to have to sleep naked. It wasn't necessary for me to say that aloud, but I don't think anyone noticed. At the end of a day on a horse, you can bed down anywhere in any company. I jot some notes into Winnie the Pooh. First pony a tortoise and a hare. Won the umbrella race, then lost his legs. Such a jolly long John's way. And peel off my wet underwear, hugging my knees to squeeze out the cold. I write a letter. Dear Mum, I'm trying to fall asleep, imagining the parts you played in the story since its beginnings lie not now, but with you. I'm trying to fall asleep, imagining the parts you played in this story, since its beginnings lie not now, but with you. Broly, my first pony of the Derby, was just like Brendan, with familiar gray fur and bulky behavior. This race is not an arrow shooting out of a bow. We pause at the stations and seize in the evenings. If an arrow at all, it stutters a lot and would like to return to its bow. Perched in this Elysian valley among snoozing people from faraway lands, I ask myself if we're even racing. I'm not sure how aware you are of my habit of moving away, but it's one I tend to lapse into, especially when bodies are stuffed together in social gatherings. It always feels to me as if we're bubbling liquor or awaiting violence. I can't cope with the desire for climax and the simultaneous going nowhereness, so I flee or estrange myself in daydreams. Things are different in this tent. Our gang is intent on racing and sleeping rather than stirring up social potions. We form a harmless, haphazard collection, only accidentally social. I'm spinning out a love affair with the oddity of our day together. I've been flinging remarks at Todd, the Australian snoozing beside me, who told someone at start camp to just hurry up and sleep with him. I can see the outline of his smile, but he isn't replying. This may mean I'm ruining his dreams of beer. I am resisting the urge to tug at his beard. If you were here, you might call me an annoying blue bottle. Today, Ma, I have seen the earth thrusting storms around and pulling bones down to her core. The coldness has left me aching and broken, like eggshell. It's useful pretending I'm neither cold nor achy, thinking of seals and such like, but then I wonder whether it's helpful to always be an actor to myself, as though this isn't painful. or as though this wound inside my tummy isn't there. Am I a stranger to my deepest depths? How do we all lock so much inside our eyes? Itching rules the night. I pray nobody makes off with my jodhpurs before I wake. Period. I suppose it's not right, but I felt I was missing out when I was 11. I swayed on the riding school ponies like a shaking minaret and thought this meant I could ride, but I didn't have my own pony with whom to progress. I'd lie in bed in London, gazing at magazine adverts of competition ponies leaping over hedges, longing for that freedom and independence, plus the accompanying poo picking rituals. But I feared Mum would go silent or judge me for daring to want such a big thing. It had taken at least a year of diplomacy to win her over with my hamster campaign. Indeed, all the advertised ponies were too expensive, and my mother was hesitant until I walked into the kitchen one July afternoon to find her in a state of ecstasy. What was it? Nothing other than kitchen mice and the decoration of the Christmas tree ever propelled her into such hysteria. She told me how the vicar's wife's sister had put her in touch with an Irish lady selling a horse called Greyjola, Brendan. Word of mouth is my mother's trusty friend. She hadn't understood many details from Mary, Brendan's owner, on the phone, but she kept repeating one of Mary's lines in an attempted Irish accent. Ooh, will do the job. And trust me, and thrust me a faxed photo of a jumping horse that may or may not have been Brandon. She had fallen in love with a hazy silhouette. Mum knew he was only 4, too young for an 11-year-old's first pony, but how irresistible a prize. 3 days later, I laid my head on her red poncho aboard the 3 a.m. ferry to Ireland. What with the stench, the sticky floors, and the noisy drunken men, we couldn't waste the journey. Brendan was already ours. It didn't matter that we found him moping at the back of a dim stable in a crumbling yard, run by loud chickens and a solitary goat, nor that Mary made jokes about the fact that I couldn't ride at all, like Aunt Lucinda. Even now, Mom hasn't forgotten the lunch of white bread and ham we were served, a meal she'd have stuck her nose up at England, but now, on an empty stomach in such a setting, found quite exquisite. Brendan came home to Appleshaw. I flung myself into the relationship, devoted to the bum he so loved to thrust at me in the yellow stable. We often tried to take him cross-country jumping, Aunt Lucinda's forte, but he was rarely persuaded to step over the foot-high wooden carrot, let alone anything larger. His despondence made us feel hopeless, yet we were also hopeful, and some were satisfied. Early days. At the time, Aunt Lucinda was our comic engine, our oracle. As the winter light withdrew on Sunday afternoons, she'd sit on our kitchen advising, talking at the speed of a gallop with her lower back slumped, fidgeting as usual. She often picks at food just to give her hands somewhere to go, and has been known as a guest to consume a pot of honey at breakfast. Lucinda's painterly rants would conclude with a crack on and leave us steaming with her onwards energy, itself of military origin. Her father, my paternal grandfather, who neither my mother nor I have ever met, had commanded a cavalry unit. Our family has always tried never to look back, only forward. Lucinda wrote when he died in 1977, as though the prior Palmers had a constitution. It was my grandfather who had begun the Appleshaw tap room, where his bits, the molded pieces of metal a horse takes in her mouth to receive direction, still hang like ammo, albeit beneath the spider webs that also shroud memorabilia from Lucinda's career, rotting horse wreaths, stable plaques from badminton, a moldy welcome home world champion sign above the doorway. Though these objects were decaying by the time Brendan and I got to know them, their stories found life in my mind. I am no longer sure that following in footsteps is a good aim, since a story can really only happen once in a family. It feels tiring enough inheriting some of their traditions. I often ask myself if I move through the world inside an envelope of the family declensions, line drive, critical vision, imperial self importance, among others. But in those early years, all I wanted was to ride at badminton horse trials, the world's largest, most challenging 3-day event, where Lucinda had won age 19. I read all three of her books and dreamt of her beginnings, especially of Be Fair, her first horse, who'd made her European champion and was buried beside an apple shell compost heap, which you could smell burning every autumn. My mother chimed in with nostalgic memories of Lucinda's competing days, the grace of her cross country riding, her lemon yellow colors, the tears of her supporters. Mum herself was ant like in her devotion to my cause, quite present. She would arise on frozen winter dawns beneath her lopsided turquoise hat and drive me to the fixtures across the West Country. Unmoved by the mothers who bought their children expensive horses for the national teams, she never saw the need for me to be mounted on anything more than an honest donkey. And maybe the type of horse didn't matter to me either. In one sense, those days were precious for the space they created away from home.